is one thing. The other thing is like, do you have space away from the wall?
Good morning, VC. It's been a while since I made my last video. Just need a little time off at the end of the year, and then we kind of all had the disease X, which everyone had for however many weeks you had it for. But I really wanted to get back into making some videos, and I've been listening to a lot of music. You saw a lot of those records that I had got on those shopping sprees towards the end of the year, so I've really been just digging into that and not buying so much new stuff. Just really listening to all of those. And I'm also super excited to say that we're gonna start doing a live stream show. It'll be called the Classical Bums, and it'll be with Mike and Felipe from the Jazz Bums, and me and Michael, Poetry on Plastic, and Mark, and some other people, where we're just going to talk about classical records. And that should be starting very soon. I would like to give you a date, but we're not 100% sure. But maybe this week or next week. And so I wanted to jump back in and do something that's a little shorter, not a 45-minute symphony where I'm listening to 10 versions of it and it blows me out. And so the one I wanted to start with is this one. This is Maurice Ravel, Alborada del Graciosa, and it's about 6.5 to 8 minutes long, depending, usually around 7. And this is just one of my all-time favorite short works. This piece, it really has it all in such a short amount of time. It has an amazing groove to it. It's super dynamic. The quiet parts are beautiful. It has a solo bassoon section. It has really rambunctious, loud parts, very quiet parts. And it's on a lot of things. It's on a lot of Ravel or Faya or Debussy records because it's so short. It kind of fills up a side of an album, and probably live it's a great showstopper before intermission short piece that's really rambunctious. So as you know, I don't like to really get into the whole history lesson of things because you can just look it up and read it as easily as I could. But I will say that one of the things that makes this piece and Ravel in general one of my favorites and so interesting is that he's Basque. And there are not a lot of Basque composers. And I will tell you, from years and years of being a fine dining chef, I've cooked a lot of Basque food and a lot of Spanish food and a lot of French food. And a lot of people think that Basque is sort of a combination of like Spain and France, or Spain and France. And it's not. The Basque region is its own territory, its own people. It has its own culture and music and food and everything that's different from Spain and different from France. And it's just that when those national lines got drawn up, which happens so much in the world, they just took a region and split it in half, and half belongs to this country and this country. And so it's a very distinct culture, which probably should have its own country, but that's a whole other story. And so I say that because I think when I was first getting into Ravel, with a name like Maurice Ravel, you would assume he's French, and although technically he was born in France, but his music doesn't sound like French music at all. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so individualistic stylistically and interesting. So this piece was originally composed in a suite of solo piano pieces, and it was orchestrated much later. I believe Diaghilev, after he had commissioned Ravel to do the music for Daphnis and Chloe, he then commissioned him to orchestrate some of those piano works, and that's how we get the Alborada. So I'm going to try and keep all these pretty short because it's a short piece, and the first one that I want to talk about is this one that I was holding up, And this, the main piece on it is Faya's El Amor Brujo, and it also has some Granados and a couple of Ravel pieces. This is London CS 6521. It's from 1968, 7 minutes 35 seconds. This one was recorded at Kingsway by Wilkinson and Munshall. Originally recorded in 65, came out in 68. Actually, I think the Decca came out in 67. And this one really has that perfect Decca, Kingsway, up close sound, sounds beautiful. Because it was originally a piano piece and sort of based loosely maybe on some kind of flamenco movements, like kind of a standard 6/8, 3/8 flamenco thing. The harps are kind of playing the guitar lines, and they're played really up close by the soundboard, so they're really snappy. And this one has such a great harp sound on it. Sounds really guitar-like. One thing I really like about this one is the castanets. They're really up front and really prominent in the sections where they appear. And it's interesting, not every version has the castanets in it. And I think the ones that don't have it kind of lack in a certain way as far as catching that more Basque Spanish feel to it. But anyhow, this one, beautiful string tone, big drums, castanets are great. The rendition itself sounds very true culturally, which I like a lot, and just an absolutely great version. So the next one comes off of a version of Debussy's Iberia. This is Reiner Chicago. This is actually the Analogue Productions 2015 remaster by Ryan K. Smith, who I think I've said this before is my favorite remastering engineer for classical. Something about all of his versions, just they don't sound overcooked or kind of screwed with in any way. This was originally recorded by Leighton and Moore in 1957. This, kind of like the other one with the classic sound, this has a really classic RCA Living Stereo sound. The hall is beautiful. We've all heard it a million times. So this one is cut hotter. It's more dynamic. It's louder. When I listen to all these back to back, I don't adjust the volume. I just let them play at whatever volume they're mastered at. So this one is loud. There's a lot more just little micro details, like in the pizzicato and the woodwind runs, and it has castanets, but they're reverby and they're kind of pushed more towards the back, like they're sort of in the same line as like the tambourine and the cymbals and that kind of stuff. This one has a little more bass, a little more definition of the plucked bass. And all in all, just a great record. The whole record is great, actually. The Iberia is fantastic. Would highly recommend this album. The next version is the Classic Records 45 RPM series special one-sided pressing. So this is the same recording, Reiner Chicago, but this is the Classic Records from 94, 95. And this one is cut by Bernie. I'm not always a huge fan of Bernie's remasters, but to his credit, you know, this was also done 30 years ago, so it may have been a little more on top of it then. This sounds fantastic. And this record also has probably this much music, like 1 inch of music on it on one side. It's definitely an album that has the least amount of music on it. And the reason why Classic Records did this was they thought that when it came out on 33 originally, that it got a little too close to the center and it was smashed a little bit. So they decided to release this as like a supplement to that release so that you could have this in as pristine quality as possible. This sounds amazing. This next version is one of the first Analogue Productions records. This is APC 007. This is Minnesota Orchestra with Stanislav Skroashevsky, I think. I hope I didn't murder that. Never really heard of him. Don't really know anything about the Minnesota Orchestra. So the original, the recording supervisor producer was Mark Abort, and I love his recordings. And then it was mastered by Doug SAX on his old all-tube system, which I believe Chad now owns. This comes in at 8:05, and it's slow and it's long. And okay, as far as like an audiophile recording, this sounds stellar. This sounds incredible. As a piece of music, it sounds like the Steely Dan or like Billy Joel of Ravel. Totally boring and sterile, and that's that. Sounds great, music terrible. The next recording is, this is a version of Debussy's La Mer, and it also has Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe Suite Number 2. This is Anserme, the Orchestra Suisse Romand. This was originally a 1960 wideband Decca, which is crazy expensive to get, recorded by Roy Wallace. This one comes in at 6 minutes 50 seconds. This is the King Super Analog Disc version from 1994. What can I say? People, myself included, agree that these recordings are a little darker, like a little more rolled off than the originals. What you get in trade for that is more bass and more mid-bass, and you lose some of the high, and that's what it sounds like a decent version of it. I wouldn't say Anserme's interpretation is my favorite by any means. It's bassy, it's loud, it sounds good, it's a little rolled off. The version of La Mer, though, on the other hand, is fantastic on this record. Next up, on Columbia, on the blue and silver labels, this is Carlo Maria Giulini, and this has that classic Columbia sound, kind of mid-haul, little distant, nice decay. It sounds very real. In the louder sections, gets a little muffled in the mid-bass, but I think that's kind of a trait of these original Columbias. They kind of remind me of like Blue Note in a way, okay? Like this is a very expensive record. They're very rare. They don't all sound super great, kind of like Blue Notes don't sound that good, but they are true to the label and sort of true to that time. Like this definitely sounds like a record recorded in that era. And this is what the Philharmonia Orchestra, which did a lot of those Columbia recordings. Musically, really great. His interpretation is great. It's 7.5 minutes, so right in the middle. If you can find it or afford it, I would recommend this record. Next up, we have Wolf with the Paris Conservatoire Orchestra, and this is XXL 2105. This is an original wideband edition 1 from 1958. Comes in at 744. This one also is recorded by Kenneth Wilkinson at the Maison de la Chimée, and this was kind of the sleeper surprise version for me because this sounds killer. This sounds amazing, and you know, it has also three dances from Faya's Three-Cornered Hat, and it has Bolero, which I hate, and I kind of didn't expect this to be so great, but it really has that classic Kenneth Wilkinson greatness, and it's not recorded at Kingsway. This one really has that first harp sound that really sounds like a guitar playing riffs. Just a fantastic depth. It's really deep from the strings being up front and the percussion really hitting in a distance from the back. Super wide, super dynamic. The performance itself is interesting. It doesn't sound that Basque or flamenco-ish. It sounds modern. It almost sounds like a Bartók piece or something, the way that he's interpreted it. Because the piece in general has a lot of very tight-fitting, angular sections that all kind of fit into each other like gears really nicely. And this one really sort of accentuates the angularness of that. This one also, you can really hear the bow digging into the strings. The brass is huge on this one, which it really isn't on a lot of the other ones. Really kind of stands out here. And I think this one is in its 7 minutes 44 seconds, so this is pretty slow also. But unlike the other one that drags, the slower tempo in this one actually lets the rhythms be accentuated a little bit more and with a little more space to breathe. So here there's no castanets. Everything, all of those hits are played on the snare, which is pretty interesting, and it also kind of adds to that modern sound a bit and less folk sounding. If you can find this album, I would highly recommend getting it. All of the pieces sound really great, and it also has the Berlioz Invitation to the Dance. So, you know, just a collection of short pieces. So yeah, if you can find it, pick it up. Sounds super killer, highly recommended. Just skip the bolero. And finally, my favorite. Can you guess which one it is? It's this. The Classic Records, 1994, mastered by Bernie, remaster of the Paul Parade, Detroit. This was recorded by Wilma Fine. This is, I think, this is from 1963, just kind of the height of the truly great Mercury recordings. Some Mercury recordings sound shrill and terrible, and some of them are amongst the best things ever recorded in the history of humankind. This is one of them. This is one of the best sounding records I own. The performance is amazing. This one comes in at, I think, 6.5 minutes. It's fast. It is so fast and so loud and so dynamic. All of the good things about every other recording I talked about, this one does it better. This one has little micro details, bows on strings, just the tambourine in this one, I never even really heard on the other recordings. You can hear it loud and clear here, the castanets, the snare, the cymbals. It's like, you don't just hear a cymbal crash. You hear the hit, the ring, the decay, all of it. This is like you are right in the orchestra listening to it. And the interpretation, the performance, this is fierce. It is so fierce, so good. It's just played so hard in the hard sections. This is an incredible record. Actually took me a little while to find one of these at like a price I was willing to pay for it, but well worth it. This is, you know, along with Lieutenant KJ and the Firebird, those are kind of like the 3 classic records at 45 you should just definitely own. And even out of those 3, this one is my favorite. So there you go. That's my take on Maurice Ravel's Alborada del Gracioso, one of my favorite pieces. If you don't know it, check it out, stream it, whatever. It's a great piece of music. It does so much in so little time. And I will be back soon. I have a list of videos I'm gonna make, and I've been doing a lot of the listening already and have notes. So it's just a matter of kind of coming down here and filming them. And hopefully I will catch you on the Classical Bums stream with the Jazz Bums. All right, guys. Bye-bye.